You do need to plan ahead. And even if the kids are 1 and 2 years old, this is the time when the plan is going to make a huge difference, right? All right, and welcome in to another episode of CFP Reacts, where I, Scott Schiller, your host, board certified financial planner, reacts to the best and worst financial advice in social media. Thank you so much for joining me. Please go ahead and like, subscribe to this video and to my channel. In today's video, we're going to be talking about a very, very popular topic, one I get a lot of questions on, and is a big one certainly for young families having children, and it is centered around the 529 accounts. 529 college savings accounts, how they work, what they're used for, and all of the different planning techniques that are used with them. And I thought today's video is going to be reacting to a video from Dave Ramsey, a call that he took. I thought it was a good one, a good example of some different ideas and some different planning techniques with them. And I'm going to be sharing at the end of the video here some of the characteristics and what to look for with them. But just as an introduction, the goal of a 529 account is to be able to take an investment for the long term. This is for college savings for children. The earlier the better to invest the money, and that way it can grow on what's called a tax deferred basis. So the growth is not being taxed or added to your tax return personally each and every year. And when we go ahead and take withdrawals out and use it for college, and the rules have been expanded on this, right? So this is for 2024. We can use 529 accounts for K through 12 expenses, as well as for trade schools. And so thankfully the Secure Act has really expanded things there. But for room and board, tuition, things of that nature, for college expenses, we take withdrawals and they are tax-free, okay? So we've grown the money on a tax-deferred basis and we've withdrawn tax-free. And so it creates a really, really great advantage when we're trying to save for college. But let's go ahead and jump right into this video and give us some examples here.
It's in Sheridan, Wyoming. Hi, Lindsay. How are you?
Great, thanks. How are you? Thanks for taking my call today.
Sure. What's up?
So I was just calling. My husband and I are currently making 529 contributions for our daughter and nieces and nephews. And it kind of came up in discussion. What do we do? We want to be able to gift them all equally. But, what would be your recommendations or thoughts on, if one of them went to a trade school or something that doesn't cost quite as much? We're kind of thinking, what would we be able to do to help them all equally if they don't choose the same path in life, if that makes sense?
If you had the same amount of money in there, what wouldn't be unequal?
Well, my thought was, like if one of them went to a trade school that only cost $20,000, but
they would have the money left over in there. They'd have the money left over, wouldn't they?
They would, but if it can't be used for...
Right, so I think her question's a great question, right? And this is one certainly you should be considering or be concerned with, right? So what happens if only one of them, doesn't go to a trade school or doesn't go to college, or you don't need the expenses on one of them here? And so Dave here, he doesn't say this at all, but the idea is that on a 529 account, what you have is the parent or the parents are the owner of the account, okay? And on a 529 account, you have what's called a beneficiary or an educational beneficiary, and that is our child, okay? We can change that beneficiary, right? And so her example here, she's got nieces, nephews, and her own kid. And so if one doesn't use the money, we can transfer it to another. So that's just one option that exists here.
Be used for an educational purpose if they're done with their education. My thought was, do you have an idea, like if we wanted to perhaps help with like a down payment on a house, do you think it's wise to invest it all in a 529 or go other routes so we have more than one option?
Well, most people do not get enough into their 529 to pay for college.
Okay.
And so most of the time...
Okay, so he really doesn't answer her question at all. So the answer would be is we certainly don't want to use a 529 account with the potential use for a down payment or a wedding or some other expense, okay? Reason being is if we do take withdrawals out and we don't use it per the rules for college use, or like I said, mentioned earlier, K through 12 or trade schools, an approved use, then we're going to be looking at a 10% withdrawal penalty. And so we don't want to do that, right? And so the best way to use this would be to solve for that issue is we want to use multiple options, right? Whether it be a custodially owned account, other choices in addition to a 529 to meet certain goals, right? So as I'm sitting down with somebody and we're talking about, okay, our concerns are down payment on a house. Well, that we need to use something other than a 529.
Okay.
And so most of the time, this is a theoretical discussion. So most of the time, the answer is put all you can in the 529 because it's still not going to be enough, even for trade school. Now, if you're way, way, way ahead of the curve and you've done a great job and you're worried about having $200,000 in a 529 and then they go do something for 60 grand at a trade school, that's a valid concern then. And if you're really looking at those actual numbers and that's actually occurring today, then you say, okay, I'm going to split it off. I'm just going to put some in a mutual fund in that kid's name. And I'm the custodian.
Okay. That's exactly what we wanted.
Yeah, and that's a custodian
because
account.
Are you at that point?
But I'm not doing that if you have $5,000 in your 529, you're putting $50 a month in there. I'm not doing that.
I bet you don't, Lindsay, though, because you're talking about a down payment even. I mean, are you guys...
How much is in the 529 today?
They're all like 1 and 2 years old.
Okay, so you don't have to worry about it today.
No, I don't. It just came up in discussion.
You do need to worry about it today. You do need to plan ahead. And even if the kids are 1 and 2 years old, this is the time when the plan is going to make a huge difference, right? The decisions made now are going to make a huge difference in the 18 years down the road when we actually need the money. And so you do need to be, not to say, I wouldn't say go ahead and say worried about it, but we definitely need to have a discussion, and your certified financial planner needs to have a plan for you starting today. The earlier, the better.
In discussion, and we thought, well, should we go this route? Or
yes, you should go this route. You should go this route until you have enough in the 529 that it starts to be an issue. And so if you get up to 100 or something in a 529, after that you can start talking about putting some of it somewhere else. If you think that kid might be a trade school kid instead of a 4-year kid. And by the way, either one's fine with me. I'm great with that. So, but don't split it off today. And $50 here, $50 there, that'll drive you nuts.
Yeah.
And you're missing out on all the tax benefits.
Yeah.
Because it's going to grow tax free in that 529. So the college world is a changing.
It's changing. We were talking about that during the break. I know. And there's a lot of, I've heard, I think probably more in the last 2 years, and even more so since the pandemic and everything, and how much online has gone and everything. It's crazy that people really are kind of questioning, okay, what's education going to look like in 20 years, right? She said that those kids or the accounts are 1 or 2 years old, but if you have littles, and Winston and I, we're still funding kids' college, we're still doing it. But I think it is an interesting conversation, though, of what education could look like in 20 years. But you were saying at the break, you were like, yeah, but higher education's not going away. You're still going to be using.
Yeah, so let's pause there. So, part of the idea here is to, really plan ahead and just have a goal in mind. One thing that has changed that's new for the Secure Act, and again in 2024, is the ability to have some options, right? So let's say we invest money, and for whatever reason, we get into the college years, they're not disabled, they don't go to trade school, they don't go to college, things of that nature, and there's also not another child that we can transfer the money to use for their benefit. And so we're sort of in this position of being, I don't know, I guess for lack of a better word, stuck, right? And so one thing that's changed that's new is the ability for the owner to what's called transfer the money or roll over up to a limit, and we'll be limited to what's called the Roth contribution limitation. Okay, so for 2024, that is $7,000 per year. We can transfer money from the 529 account into a Roth IRA owned by the child. Okay, and we can do that each year up to what's called a lifetime limit of $35,000. Okay, so we could do it for 5 years. $7,000, $35,000, okay? And the goal there is to say, okay, we didn't use the money for college education. However, we can pivot and switch over, and now we can fund a retirement account for the child, okay? And so that gives us some options there. And so the window of potential of a situation where we just have no use for the money whatsoever down the road is still there. Although it is narrowing and getting smaller and smaller. And so absolute worst case scenario, we take the money out and we pay our penalty and we move on. But the goal is to, again, work with the planner early on, the earlier the better, and that way we can really maximize the use of those funds for the long term for the benefit of the child. So anyway, I hope you found this video helpful. Please go ahead and like, subscribe, and in the comments below, please let me know what your thoughts are and any other videos or topics you'd like me to do a video on. Please let me know and I will go ahead and work on getting it done for you. So thanks again for tuning in. I will see you in the next video.